Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, I'm Dr. Himanshu Tyagi and I am teaching this course on heat and mass transfer. Today will be the sixth lecture. The title of this particular lecture is Steady State Conduction, and we will look at the part 1 today. Before we start this lecture, let us have a brief recap of the previous lecture number 5. In this one, we looked into details of thermal diffusivity and we tried to look into what is the significance of the universality of diffusivity. So, we tried to look at three different phenomena like the diffusion of heat, the diffusion of momentum and the diffusion of mass. So, I tried to give some correlations between that, and later on we looked into details of different type of boundary conditions for 1D heat conduction. So, we started off with convective boundary condition, we also looked at radiative boundary condition, and towards the end we looked at the interface boundary condition. So, this figure which is shown over here was discussed in quite detail. So, we could figure out how does the temperature profile go through the solid as well as near the boundary of the solid where the fluid interacts with it. Today, we will start a new topic which is about steady state heat conduction, and in this we will look at 2 or 3 different topics of interest. The first one is thermal resistance network and the second one is the importance of contact resistance. So, let us start with the fundamentals of thermal resistance network. When people hear of resistance, they usually associate it with electrical resistance, because from high school onwards we have all studied in our background that voltage equals to current into electrical resistance, and that type of circuits that we have looked at, I will start with that and then I will jump over to the analogous thermal resistance network which would look almost exactly the same. So, if we recall from our high school physics background, we can draw a circuit in which, let us say for the simple case, there is only one resistor over here R. The voltage here is high, I will write it as V1 equals to 10 volts. The voltage on the other side I will take little bit low. So, I am just putting some numbers over here just to make some illustrations, and this resistance in between let us put as 2 ohms. So, what happens is, if we connect these two voltages with a conducting wire in which this resistance is present, then some sort of a current starts flowing over here. So, in this particular case we can do very quick math and we can figure out this I value will turn out to be 5 amperes. So, for the sake of formal definition, I will write it like this, that is V1 minus V2 divided by R. So, it turns out to be 10 volts divided by 2 ohms. So, we get 5 amperes. So, these are the basic fundamentals of electrical resistance. So, we can make it slightly more complicated. I can add things in series. So, we all remember this from our high school studies. Then over here, if we have this voltage difference and I put instead of 1, I am putting now 3 resistances. Now, again I can calculate the value of this particular current for this case over here. And let me put some numbers over here. Let us say this is 1 ohm, this equals to 2 ohms, this is again 2 ohms. Over here we have on the left side 10 volts, on the right side 0 volts. So, again for calculating this current, now it will be the delta V divided by the total electrical resistance. So, in this particular case our numerator is 10 volt and the denominator turns out to be 5 volts. So, here we will get the answer as 2 amperes. So, if we compare these two numbers over here, on the top high current is flowing through the wire, now low current is flowing, because as the name suggests we have increased the resistance. Earlier in the wire there was only 2 ohms of resistance, now we have increased it to 5 ohms. So, I think you can get a picture that slowly we will convert it into a thermal resistance, where we will try to say if heat is trying to flow through a particular solid or through a particular material, if that material starts to become thicker and thicker, if its length increases or its thermal conductivity decreases, in some ways we are adding thermal resistance to it. So, for engineers it is actually very useful to add thermal resistance. So, for instance, if I have some cold fluid and I want to keep in this summer, I want to maintain it cold for long period of time. So, I can purchase a thermos from the market in which the manufacturer has actually ensured that the thickness of the thermos, the way it has been manufactured is such that the thermal resistance over there he want to keep it very large, so that the temperature does not decrease over time. So, over here just for the sake of completion, I can also mention some voltages in between, which means I know the left side voltage is 10 and the right side voltage is 0, but I can for interest also calculate the values of VA and VB. So, again we recall from our earlier background that we can write the voltage difference for this particular zone, and we can make use of the continuity of the current. So, the current, if it is I at one portion of the wire, it is throughout I. So, I can write very quickly V1 minus VA equals to I into R1, and from this equation over here I can calculate the value of VA. So, it turns out to be V1 minus IR1, and in this particular case its value will turn out to be 10 volts minus I is 2 and R1 is 1. So, over here I will get 8 volts. So, over here I can go and write with a different color that this value turns out to be 8 volts. I can do a similar analysis for VB, and I will just write the final result over here. It will turn out to be 4 volts. So, all these values actually depend on the resistance values R1, R2 and R3. So, it is very simple and easy to see what actually is going on over here. We can make it little bit more complicated as well. So, we remember not only we can add resistance in series, we can perhaps also add them in parallel, which means I can have this type of a electrical network where current will flow over here, but whatever current is flowing, some part will go through this wire and some part will go through this wire. So, let me put some numbers over here. This resistance I will call as R1, and in my example I have taken it as 1 ohm, and this resistance I am taking as R2, and here I have taken it 4 ohms. The current flowing through the top part, that value I have taken as I1, I am denoting it as I1, and the bottom value I am denoting as I2. So, over here I want to calculate the value of I1 and I want to calculate the value of I2, and also I want to calculate the effective value of resistance. What does the effective value mean? That can I replace these two resistances which are connected in parallel with one resistance, or I will call it the effective resistance. So, what will its value be? So, this is another thing I want to calculate. So, we all recall from our earlier background that we can add resistances in parallel as well. So, we will use the parallel law. So, we will say this is the R total is equal to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. In other words, I can say I can solve this particular thing, and R total expression will turn out to be R1 into R2 divided by R1 plus R2. I can solve this particular thing by using the values which I have chosen over here. So, the values that I have chosen is 1 ohm and 4 ohm. So, I will say 1 into 4 divided by 1 plus 4. So, what I get is 4 divided by 5. So, it turns out to be 0.8 ohm. So, we remember that in parallel it is very interesting that we have two resistances which are apparently large. One is 1 ohm, one is 4 ohm, If we had added them in series, we would have got 5 ohms, but if we are adding them in parallel, we are getting a much lower value, much lower than 4 and much lower than 1. So let's try and see what would the value of I be over here. So I is essentially delta V divided by R total. So in this case, delta V is 10 volts and the total resistance is 0.8. So my current would turn out to be, if my math is correct, I think it will turn out to be 12.5 amperes. And I can also figure out how much of that would be traveling through the top part and how much will actually be traveling through the bottom part. So I can write that over here. Oops. Let me pick a new color. Okay. So on the top part, I think we will be getting like 10 amperes will be flowing through this one, and 2.5 amperes will be flowing over there from the bottom side. And if we add them together over here, we will be getting 12.5 amperes. So I think these are things I am doing just for the sake of revision. These are things which we have already done, and we can keep on making these networks more and more complicated. We can add 2 resistances in parallel and then add them in series with another 2 resistances. I can make this as V1, this is V2. I can add a single resistance over here, then add that in parallel with 2 more resistances over here. So in all these cases, if I know the value of all these resistances, I can calculate all the currents, all the voltages at each of these points, what is the different various values of current. So it turns out to be simple arithmetic and very easy calculation it is. Now let us try and see the interesting part, that whatever we have done till now, adding resistances in series, in parallel, representing resistances, figuring out how much current is flowing through one branch and through other branch. Now I will start from a fresh slide. Now let us try and see that if I want to do the thermal analogy for this, what kind of values will I get. So we will go back to our favorite problem, that heat transfer is taking place through this plane wall. The length of the wall is L. I have a higher temperature on the left side, lower temperature on the right side. I will define the x-axis as well. So the left side temperature and right side temperature, because we are in the steady state chapter, I will keep it straight line. So it like this. Then we have temperature T1 over here and then temperature T2 over here. On this side there is hot air, and since this is the left side, I will write it as the temperature here as T infinity left, and this value I know. So I will write it with a different color. So this value I know is 50 degrees. Similarly over here I have cold air, and its temperature I will denote as T infinity R on the right hand side, and this value also I know is 15 degrees. So if you attended last lecture, I think you remember that why are we writing this infinity symbol, because these are the temperatures which are very far away from the surfaces of the wall. So this is usually the convention which we use. We also know the value of heat transfer, convective heat transfer coefficient on the left side. So I am assuming it is about 2 watts per meter square on the left side, and on the right side I am assuming a different number, 4 watts per meter square Kelvin. Now what is going to happen over here, if this is the scenario in steady state, what it essentially means is that this hot air is giving energy in the form of convective heat transfer from this left side to the right side. So I will write this as Q dot convective on the left side. Then conduction takes place through the wall. So I will write it as Q dot conduction, and this wall on the right hand side surface, it heats up the air which is present adjacent to it. So I will write it as Q dot convective R. I will also put some numbers over here for the various dimensions. So L value I have taken, I have mentioned, I will take it as 1 meter for simplicity. The cross section of this particular wall I will also take as 1 meter square. The thermal conductivity of the wall value I will also take as 1 watt per meter Kelvin. So, just for simplicity I am taking this, and if you remember from our last class, we have also drawn the temperature profile inside the air as well. So, here the gradient will rise, it will go up and then it goes over here. So, this is 50 degree at this particular point, that is my. Over here also the temperature will dip little bit and then it goes over there. So, this is my 15 degree over here. What am I trying to calculate in this problem? Let us try to see. So, I will try to highlight it with a different color, maybe orange color. I want to find out these values. What is the convective rate of convective heat transfer, the rate of conduction heat transfer? Essentially all three will be equal. I want to find out what is the value of that number. This is the first thing I want to find out. So, I will put a question mark over here. The second thing I want to find out is what is the value of T1. So, I will put a question mark over here, and I want to find out the value of T2. So, I will put a question mark over here as well. These are the three parameters that I want to find out. So, let me write over here. I want to find out the value of Q dot, I want the value of T1 and I want the value of T2. So, there are various ways in which we can solve this particular problem, but in this particular chapter we will solve it with the thermal resistance network. So, these temperatures we will essentially convert into voltages. So, this will be the first voltage over here, this will be the second voltage, this point will be the third voltage and this point will be the fourth voltage. So, we have 4 voltages over here. So, instead of writing them as volts, I will write them as temperatures, but we will in our mind keep it in note that essentially we are taking them as voltage nodes. So, this voltage or the temperature here is T infinity L. What is the temperature here? T1 at this particular point, T2, and on the right hand side temperature is T infinity R. Now, if you remember in previous slides, voltage points we have connected with the help of resistances. So, these temperatures we will connect with the help of resistance, and instead of these being electrical resistance, now they actually become thermal resistance. So, in this problem that we are doing right now, we have 3 resistances. So, let me write them as resistance 1, resistance 2 and resistance 3. So, I want to make one point clear to the audience members that from this point onwards, we are not talking about the ohmic resistance or the electrical resistance. Now, we are talking about thermal resistance. So, in very soon we will define what do we mean by thermal resistance. Just keep it in mind that its units is no longer ohms, it will be something related to watts. Now, let us say the way these thermal resistances are actually defined. So, I am going to write it over here. So, R1 value turns out to be 1 upon HA, and because the H on the left side we have taken as HL, I will write it is equal to. So, R1 is equal to 1 upon HLA. This is how the convective resistance is defined, and the resistance of the convection on the right hand side will be similarly defined as 1 upon HRA. So, if I ask some of the audience members that can you guess how did we come up with this resistance value, why not something else? So, we can very easily find it out just by writing the convection, the rate of heat transfer for convection. So, it turns out to be it is HA into delta T, right, and this is my current analogy, this is my voltage analogy, which means if I write V equals to IR or delta V. So, over here my delta V becomes T, I becomes Q. So, what remains over here is essentially 1 upon HA. You can see that I have brought 1 upon HA down from here to here. So, from this analogy we can see that resistance turns out to be equal to 1 by HA for convection. Maybe I can do the same analysis for conduction as well. So, I can write for conduction Q dot is essentially K A delta T by L, and this thing also I want to write in terms of delta V equals to I into R So, over here my delta V becomes delta T, I is the current, it becomes rate of heat transfer. So, what remains over is L divided by Ka. How did I get it? I just brought it down from their side over here, which means with the help of these two equations, I can also write the value of R2 over here very easily, and it turns out to be it's simply L divided by Ka. Now, I have the full electrical circuit, the thermal resistance network, which appears like a electrical circuit. If I go back into the diagram, I can put some arrows over here, because the current is flowing through this electrical network, but instead of calling it current, we are calling it Q dot. So, this is Q dot convection on the left side, this is Q dot conduction, and over here it is Q dot convection on the right side. And the interesting thing I think everyone can immediately see is all these three Q's have to be equal. That is the interesting part. Now, let me calculate the total resistance. How can I add them up together? I can clearly see they all are in series, which means R thermal total, which is the total thermal resistance in this particular diagram, is simply R1 plus R2 plus R3. So, due to lack of space, I will move to the next slide. So, I was saying R total is equals to R1 plus R2 plus R3, right? And let me write down the expression for these three resistances. So, R1, if you remember, was 1 upon HLA, R2 was L divided by Ka, and R3 was 1 upon HRA. I forgot to mention that the units in this particular case for thermal resistance network, for the thermal resistance turns out to be, it is Kelvin per watt. This is the unit, and this we can see by doing the dimensional analysis over here. Now, let me put in some numbers, because I want to solve the previous problem. If you remember, in the previous problem, we wanted to calculate these three values. These are the unknowns for us. So, let us try to calculate them. So, I remember some of these numbers. HL value we have taken as 2, and A value is always 1. Length was 1 meter, K was also 1, A was also 1. So, for simplicity, it turns out to be nice numbers over here. HR value, if we remember, was 4 over here, and I will write the units as Kelvin per watt. This thing I can do very quickly. It is 0.5 plus 1 plus 0.25. So, the whole thermal resistance turns out to be 1.75 Kelvin per watt. So, this is my total resistance. I already know the value of delta T. Let us go back and quickly see what is the total temperature difference in this particular process. So, maybe I will use the light green color. So, the total temperature difference is the maximum temperature, which is over here on the left side, and I will subtract the minimum temperature with it. So, this will give me the difference. So, if I can draw this arrow over here, the difference of these two temperatures will be delta T. So, delta T is essentially T infinity L minus T infinity R. So, in this particular case, these values, if I remember correctly, were 15 degree and 50 degree and 15 degrees. So, the difference turns out to be 35 degrees. So, I have these two values R and delta T. So, I can easily calculate Q dot, because current is simply voltage divided by resistance. Over here it is delta T divided by total resistance RT, and this turns out to be 35 degree centigrade divided by 1.75 Kelvin watt. Now, ideally we should have done everything in Kelvin, but centigrade, Kelvin, both are equivalent scales if we are cancelling them out. So, it turns out to be a nice number. So, the final answer is 20 watt. So, what we get over here is, So, one of the answers we have figured out. So, let us go back and put a check over here. So, this Q dot value we have figured out and it is equal to 20 watts. So, I can write that over here. Now, we have only got to figure out the value of T1 and T2, which we can do by simple analysis again. So, let us go back to the next slide and we will try and figure out what is the value of T1 and what is the value of T2. So, for calculating the value of T1, if I go back, sorry, I have to go and back a little over here, but I think it is understandable. So, this difference I can take over here and try and use this temperature difference T infinity L minus T1. So, I go to the new slide and I try and write over here T infinity L minus T1 divided by the resistance R1 over here, and this will be equal to Q dot. So, voltage difference divided by resistance gives me current. So, in this equation everything is known except for T1. So, from here I can solve for T1 and I can say T1 will turn out to be T infinity L minus Q dot R1, and these values I already have. So, this is 50 degrees minus 20 watts, and R1 if you go back we had figured out from here, I think it is written here itself, it was 0.5 units was Kelvin per watt over here. So, it simply tells me it is 50 degrees centigrade minus 10 degrees centigrade, it turns out to be 40 degrees. So, T1 value we have calculated. So, let us go back and put that value over here. So, T1 also we have calculated, it turns out to be 40 degrees. And similarly, we can calculate T2 as well. So, that exercise I will leave for the audience members to do themselves. I will just write the final result over here, and how to do that I will give a small hint that we can apply the similar relation what we have done over here. We can do that between these two temperatures T infinity R and T2, and if we know the resistance R3 which we have already calculated, then we can calculate the value of T2 as well, and it turns out to be 20 degrees centigrade. So, with the help of thermal resistance network, we have solved the same problem that we have done last time, but there we had used some other analysis. We have equated all the Q dots, and that is another thing we have done over here, but in the simple case they both look similar. But when we try to make it complicated, let us try and see how does the thermal resistance network really helps us. So, let us make things slightly complicated, because this is what we try to do in life as well as in engineering. Once we have solved a simple problem, we get confidence and then we try to solve slightly more difficult problem. So, how do I make this problem difficult? So, thermal resistance network will really be helpful if it can help me solve a complicated problem. So, let me go back to that analysis that I always used to give earlier, that if we have a white wall like this over here, let us say, and then I try to make a compound wall out of it. So, one way would be that I can add another wall of a different material over here, and if heat is flowing from one direction towards the another direction, then we can clearly see that what we are going to do is add the thermal resistance in series, because heat is going first through the first resistance and then through the next resistance. We will try to make it more interesting. What happens if the wall is on top of one another? And we will take two different materials. Let us say one is slightly higher thermal conductivity. This part of the wall, the black one, is made of black marble and the white one is made of brick. And both the sides are experiencing the same hot air on this side, both of them, and the same cold air on this side, which means this white and black surface both will have the same temperature. So, there is no temperature gradient in the vertical direction, only temperature gradient is towards left and right. So, I hope you are able to understand this schematic that I am talking about, and let me go ahead and draw that as well. So, we are making the first complication in order to try to solve a better problem. So, this is a vertical wall that we are looking at, the x axis is over here, and since we are limiting ourselves to one dimension heat transfer right now, so there is no heat transfer is being assumed in the y and z directions. So, what we are doing in this case is we are not making the whole wall out of brick, but instead the top part we are making of a different material. So, let me go ahead and write over here. So, the top part I will dot it with the green color, and this one I am assuming is made of marble, and here I am assuming 4 times higher thermal conductivity. So, what I am assuming is 4 watts per meter Kelvin. The bottom part, let me highlight it with dark red color, and this one is made of brick, and here I am assuming the brick thermal conductivity approximately is 1 watt per meter Kelvin. These numbers they do not signify much actually, just for the illustration purpose I am taking it. Everything else I am keeping same as earlier, which means this length L will be defined like this, the area will be defined over here, this is the cross sectional area is over here, because in reality it will be a wall like that, sorry. It is a 3-dimensional wall, but I am not showing the third dimension because in the y direction and in the z direction there are no changes in temperature. So, the main difference over here will be that the total area I am still keeping as 1 meter square, but we will have the understanding that now the marble portion only has half meter square and the brick portion has half meter square. So, if we add them together we get 1 meter square. That is the understanding. Thermal conductivity values we have obtained. Over here left side again I am taking hot air, right side I am taking cold air, and same values I am going to assume. T infinity L I will keep as 50 degrees, H L I am keeping as 2 watts per meter square Kelvin. On the right hand side I am taking T infinity R same as 15 degrees as earlier, and H R I am taking 4 watts per meter square Kelvin. So, let me roughly draw what the temperature profile might look like over here. It may go something like this and then something like this. So, I will denote this as temperature T1, this is temperature T2. So, here again we are trying to figure out what are the things that we want to find out, how much convective heat transfer is taking place on this surface, then how much conduction is going over here. But in this case will we have the same value of Q dot for brick and for marble? Let us assume that they are different, and then later on we will figure out whether it turns out to be same or different. So, this I will write as subscript M and this is subscript B. So, M for marble and B for brick, and on the right hand side again I want to find out what is the value of Q dot convection on the right side. This is Q dot convection on the left side. So, these are the things which are unknown to us. So, let me write it with red ink over here. Q dot convection is unknown to me, Q dot conduction for marble is not known, Q dot conduction for brick is not known, and again T1 and T2 values I do not know. So, here again as the process or the method suggests, we have to draw a resistance network. So, we start with the highest voltage or the highest temperature over here and the lowest voltage or lowest temperature over here. So, these are our 2 points. Then we have another temperature node here and then another temperature node over here. So, let us say how many resistance are there between T infinity L and T1, which means from the air to the wall. So, everything is 1 over there. So, there is only one convection going on. So, I will represent it with one resistance. The same thing is only one resistance on the right hand side over here. Now comes the interesting part. So, some part of the heat is actually flowing through the brick in this way, and then some part of heat is flowing through the marble, and they are independent of one another. So, what does that remind us of? It is probably not series, so it has to be in parallel. So, we will put it over here because one can operate independently of one another. So, now things become much more interesting. And let me put some arrows over here. So, this is how the current or the heat transfer is actually flowing. Let me put the voltages, or in this particular case it will be temperature. So, this will be T infinity left over there, then we will have T1 over here, then T2 and T infinity R over here. And let me put some numbers for resistance. So, I will call this resistance R1, this will be R2, this is R3 and this is R4. And I can even write the expression for R1, R2, R3, R4 very quickly. So, if you remember, for convection it was simply 1 upon HA. Because it is on the left side, I will put a subscript L over there. For R2 it is because of conduction. So, this is K by LA. Will it remain the same? So, for R2 represents the marble over here. So, maybe I will write it with green color so that it becomes clear that I am talking about that green marble portion over there. So, instead of K I will write Km, because M stands for marble, and we can see the analysis back over there. Then we have seen, sorry, it is not K, it is L by Ka. So, I will start writing by L on the numerator and then K will come in the denominator, marble. What about A? Is it A actually or A by 2? Because now only half of the marble, only marble is consuming, that area for marble is actually 0.5 meter square, because only top portion it is taking, and the brick portion at the bottom is, area for the brick is 0.5 meter square. So, essentially I have to divide by 2 over here. So, please keep this thing in mind that when we are doing in this particular configuration, then area we have to appropriate correctly. What about R3, which is the resistance through the brick? Length is remaining same, L. Thermal conductivity will change over here, because instead of K I should write Kb, the thermal conductivity of the brick, and area again will become half. So, it is A by 2. Let me put a bracket over here for better understanding. And finally, R4, again this one is easy, I will just write it as H1 upon HRA. So, if I continue in the same spirit, let me write the expression for R total. The total thermal resistance is simply the sum of 4 resistances. Can I add them up in series? No, but I have to add 2 in series and the remaining in parallel, which means I will write it in shorthand like this. R1 is R2, this one should be 3, sorry, and then this is a reciprocal, because it will be inverted, and finally adding R4 over here, right. So, this analysis we can do over here by substituting all these terms. So, we can substitute it from here. So, all these R1 to R4 terms we can write over there. Should I do the whole exercise, or can I go ahead and write the final result? Maybe for one term I will write over here. So, maybe I can calculate it on the bottom left side, if you can see directly over here. So, 1 upon HLA will turn out to be 1 upon 2 into 1. So, this will turn out to be 0.5. So, this will be 0.5 plus, let us do this one as well. What will this value be? This will be L is 1, Km. So, marble is 4, area is 0.5, right. So, this whole thing will turn out to be 0.5 as well. Then we will look at R3. R3 is over here. Can I do it? Maybe here. So, this will turn out to be L is 1, Kb is much less 1, and area is 0.5. So, this will turn out to be a big number. So, it is a large resistance. And finally, R4 is over here, then 1 upon HRA, and HR value we have taken as 4 and area is 1. So, this is the smallest resistance, 0.25. So, that mathematical portion I will skip, I will just write the final result. So, it turns out this whole thing is equal to 1.15 and the units is Kelvin per watt. So, this is my final total resistance. Then I will put a border on that. Now, remember we are doing all this exercise in order to figure out these question marks over here on the left hand side. So, we want to figure out 3 q dots and 2 temperatures. So, with this value of R t, what can we calculate next? I think we can directly go and calculate the value of q dot. How? We can say current is voltage divided by resistance, in this particular case delta t divided by R t, and delta t is simply 50 minus 15 and R t is 1.15. So, I need a calculator to do that. Once I do that, I think we will get a value of about 30.4 watt. Now, there is a small reason why I kept most of the boundary conditions same. So, remember this is the second solved example we are doing today. Just a few minutes back we have done one more solved example, and there we have kept the same boundary condition. The hot side air is at 50 degree, cold side air 15 degree. The reason was I could go back and try and compare this number. So, on our screen we have this number of q dot which is 30.4 watt. Let us go back and see what value did we get in our previous example. Oh, it is here. So, this value is 20 watt. So, suddenly if we have added marble to our wall, what it is this example showing to us? That the amount of heat which is actually going through it has increased. So, does it actually make sense with our common perception? I would agree so, that if I am adding some material in my wall which is higher thermal conductivity, I cannot expect the heat transfer to go down or to remain same, it will actually increase. So, this confirms our understanding of heat transfer, but here the good thing is we are actually getting exact numbers. Even without doing calculation, somebody can tell that, oh, qualitatively speaking or roughly rough analysis tells that q dot should increase, but what would be that exact q dot value that we have obtained through this solution. So, this first part we have obtained over here, this q dot convection is 30.4. Now, how much will go through the marble and how much will go through the brick? So, again if we think like the heat is flowing over here, so it is difficult to think like heat because heat is non-living quantity and we are all living human being, but resistance is something which we all face in our life. So, if we have two paths in which one path the resistance is less, one path resistance is more. So, most of our feeling would be that let us try to go through the resistance through the path where resistance is less, and this is exactly how nature also behaves. If we think like the heat, the flow of heat, we will feel that marble is having higher thermal conductivity, at least 4 times higher than that of brick. Then the portion would be the nature splits this particular wattage in such a way that 4 times higher heat transfer takes place through the marble than through the brick. So, I will first give the results for marble. So, this is how we will obtain for q dot marble. It will turn out to be 24.4 watt. Let me pick a new color. For brick, not green because we maybe red one. Then for q dot brick, it will turn out to be 4 times less. So, this will be 6.1 watts. So, one interesting thing we see between these two numbers over here, they are exactly different by 4 times. This part I will leave for the audience members to figure it out themselves, but the hint is, are there some properties which differ by 4 times? So, if you go back to that analogy, so this black marble and the white brick, which these colors represent those two materials. So, this thing is 4 times higher thermal conductivity than this, and this result we are directly seeing in the ratio between q dot m and q dot b. So, this exercise I will leave it to the audience member because I am sure that this is very straightforward, they can do it quickly. I will also give the values. So, this one we have calculated, this one we have calculated. Let us also figure out what is the value of T1 and T2. So, in this particular example, T1 turns out to be 34.8 degrees centigrade and T2 turns out to be 22.6 degrees centigrade. Ramchandra ji, can we take a quick, so T1 and T2 value I have given over there, and how did we calculate it? Again, this one I will leave for the audience members because we will use the same technique that we have used in the last solved example. As you can see in the light blue color over here, I will highlight it once again. So, we just take the temperature difference between one given resistance, and we know everything except for either the current or the voltage between it. From there we can calculate the value of T1 and T2. So, we have completely solved this particular problem, and it was a very interesting problem because we could make use of resistance in series as well as in parallel. Okay. Now, let us move on to one more interesting concept which also appears here in thermal contact resistance, and this will allow me to answer one question, because I think 2 lectures back I had driven lot of temperature profiles inside the plane wall, and I had drawn a lot of funny looking curves, and there was one curve in particular where the temperature jumped like instantaneously. So, let us look at that example today, and we can provide some explanation with the help of a new concept. So, what I was talking about was, if you remember few lectures back, we looked at lot of temperature profiles. Some were going like this, some were going like temperature profile like this, some were going up and down. So, this one we remember the steady state, all 3 are steady state. The third one over here, this will be having the energy generation. Then we looked at change in thermal conductivity. So, when the slope suddenly changes over here, so it must be having 2 different thermal conductivities A and B. So, what I meant was by that funny looking curve was we drew something like this, if you remember, that suddenly the temperature is changing over here, and I asked a question to audience members that can they guess what is actually happening over here. And another interesting thing mathematically is, what is the value of dt by dx at this particular point, because if a vertical line is there, we know from our trigonometry and geometry background that essentially the slope there is infinity. It is a tangent of 90 degree, tan 90 is infinity. So, can this thing actually happen in nature, in reality? So, this is a concept I want to introduce next, and it is a very interesting concept. So, let us go ahead with that. So, I will start with the next slide, and this concept is of thermal contact resistance. So, what I have written is thermal contact resistance. In order to explain it, let me first give one example. The example is like this. I will take 2 cases. On the left side, I will write smooth case, and these are surface roughness that I am talking about, that one is a very smooth surface and another one is a rough surface. So, I think we have all seen surfaces which can be magnified microscopically. If it looks like this, it is perhaps smooth. If it looks like this, then scientists and engineers say that there is some roughness which is associated with it, and then we can even quantify this roughness over here. In reality, nothing is perfectly smooth, because if we keep on zooming in microscopically or at nanoscale, everything becomes rough. But from a macroscopic point of view, we can quantify whether roughness is of the order of millimeters, or if it is of the order of microns, or if it is very less. Now, why is this concept important in heat transfer? So, I will explain it with one example over here. Let us say I try to put 2 blocks of the same material together, and by putting them together I mean is I have 2 blocks which are currently at some distance over here. So, if I can switch to the camera, what we are actually trying to say is, if we have 2 materials which are, let us say 2 blocks which are made of the same material. So, let us assume this is copper block, this is also copper block, they are at some distance apart. Then if I try and bring them together, that is what we are trying to do in this particular diagram. So, let us go back to the diagram. We can bring them together theoretically, they will appear very nice contact like this. In fact, if both are copper, this is also copper, this is also copper, both are copper, then we can assume that this is actually a big block of copper for all intents and purposes from a thermal resistance network point of view, because heat is going to flow from here, very good conduction will take place, and copper is very good conductor of heat as well as electricity, everything goes like this. So, if these 2 blocks are smooth, this is what will happen, right. But now let us consider the real life scenario. Any block of copper that I take will have some sort of a roughness. So, let me try to draw that over here. Of course, I am magnifying the roughness. If I purchase a block of copper from the market or get it machined inside a workshop, then that operator can tell me that he has made it very smooth, but if I try to look it under a microscope, I can always find some amount of roughness which is present over there. Now, what happens in this case, if I try to bring them together, if I put them in contact. So, the word that I am coming up, try to introduce in this particular concept is I am bringing things in contact with one another. And why is contact important? Remember, in first or second lecture, we have talked about a 100-meter copper wire. We have figured out how much current will flow through it, how much heat will be generated, because we are connecting it from one voltage to another. What if the contact breaks? So, in electrical engineering, they always assume that full contact is there. Like any of our appliance, if the current is coming, if there is a break, then this thing will not work. If my TV is connected to the power supply and then there is a break of this much gap, then can current go through it? No. The same thing will happen if the heat supply is taking place at some particular point. If this is a copper block in which heat is taking place, if I break it in between and pull it apart, so one block here and one block here, so there will not be any significant amount of heat transfer which is going. So, contact is very important. So, let us try to bring them in contact with one another and see what will happen over here. So, what engineers have observed is that no matter how good we bring them in contact, there is always some gap which is present in between. So, I will fill this gap with some color over here, and this is true universally. So, there is always this gap, and what will be inside the gap? Some sort of a fluid will be there. If I am doing this process inside the room, then the room is filled with air, so the gap will contain air. If I submerge it in water, inside water, if I am trying to do that, then water is filled over there. If I try to put some sort of a glue in between, so I can before joining these two things, I can fill all this thing with fluid, right? I can put a paste over there or some high viscosity fluid. So, fluid has the good property, it can fill even small crevices and gaps. So, everywhere it will flow and it will try to fill that. So, I can have certain fluid, it could be water, it could be oil, it could be some grease as well. So, when I bring it together, then I will remove all the air and the gap will be filled with this particular fluid over here, right? Now, let me try to draw. So, I am continuing this thing on the next slide, on the right hand side of this particular slide. So, for the smooth case, so again on the left I am keeping smooth case, on the right hand side I am keeping rough case. Okay. So, I am considering these two cases over here. So, these two I will draw over here, that now let us say I am passing some heat through this particular combined block, right. Now, if everything is copper and everything is smooth, so there will only be some small line in between and heat will go very nicely through here and through here from the left side to the right side. And what will be the temperature profile over here? It will be very smooth and linear, right, because there is no air gap, every surface was very smooth. But if I try to draw the same temperature profile inside the rough case, now what is going to happen is heat transfer will take place very nicely up till this point. It is like going through the highway which is having 6 lanes or 8 lanes, I can go very smoothly over there. But then suddenly some patch is broken on the highway, 1 kilometer the road is very bad. So, there all the traffic will be very slow. That is what the resistance it is creating over there. And in thermal terms, that resistance will be manifested in temperature difference. Then the temperature suddenly drops over here. So, this crack is actually leading to this particular temperature drop. Once the heat has crossed this particular crack, again it will flow like on the highway very fast over here and huge amount of heat will be there. So, this is the thing which we are actually using. So, if you go back to the previous slide, so this dt by dx, which is almost having the infinity slope, this really does exist in nature. The only difference is if we zoom in inside over here, it is not particularly this one, it tends to go like this. So, if the slope is over here and the slope is over here, so then there is always a gradual slope over here. The slope is not 90 degree. What I am trying to say is that even the crack zone has a very small thickness. It is not having the thickness is not 0. It is very small. It could be a few microns. Maybe it is 10 microns if the surface is very smooth. If it is rough, maybe it is about 1 to 2 millimeters over there. So, this whole concept that we have studied over here, it comes under the thermal contact resistance. So, this thing that we are seeing over here is part of, it is the effect of the thermal contact resistance. The physics for it is shown on the left hand side. I will highlight it with the orange color over here. So, it is how can we eliminate this gap, because engineers do not want this type of sudden decrease in temperature. So, one way is we can fill it with the some sort of high thermal conducting glue or some fluid. Another way we can think of is, can't we just squeeze this particular thing at high pressure, and this is exactly what happens. We have people have shown that once we increase the pressure over here, the thermal contact resistance value actually goes down. Mathematically, let us also define this particular thing. So, I will write the equation for that. So, thermal contact resistance is denoted by the symbol Rc, and it is a reciprocal of Hc. The way it is defined, maybe what I will do is I will erase this particular part over here. And it is defined as the ratio of delta T interface, which is this delta T over here, and the ratio of that to the heat flux, which is Q dot divided by A. If you can figure out the units for this thing, it will turn out to be, the unit is meter square Kelvin divided by watts. So, let us formally define this variable over here. This name is thermal contact resistance, Rc, and this variable over here Hc is defined as the thermal contact conductance. So, this is the thermal contact conductance, and the other one is thermal contact resistance. So, these things we will continue and figure out in the future lectures. So, it is a very interesting concept. What I would very quickly mention over here is, to give this illustration, I just purposefully chose that both the materials were same. This was copper block, this was a copper block, and then we were trying to attach it. In reality, most of the materials that we are trying to attach to one another, they are of course different. It could be aluminum heat sink which we are trying to attach inside the thermal interface material with the cover of the IC chip. This I am talking inside the desktop computer over there. So, the chip is dissipating heat, it is attached to the heat spreader which is made of a different material over here, and then lot of stackings of different type of metals are on top of one another. So, people would assume that metals are very good conductors, so there is no resistance through it, but what appears is that the contact resistance at each of those interface sometimes becomes significant, or with time it deteriorates as well. So, if you buy a new computer after 10 year or 15 year, maybe the electronics is working perfectly fine, but if the thermal glue which connects the heat spreader and the heat sink to the main chip, if it has dried out, it will start making those voids, and essentially what happens is the thermal contact resistance value increases and the heat dissipation is becoming difficult from the desktop. So, just from the thermal performance, its overall performance can also go down. So, nature is connected with all electronic thing, with the heat transfer, thermodynamics, it is very fascinating. So, that brings us to the end of this particular lecture over here, and here we have discussed two very interesting concepts. So, I will summarize by saying that the thermal resistance network we have looked at, where we defined voltages in terms of temperature and current flow in terms of rate of heat transfer, and the electrical resistance we replaced with thermal resistance. So, we did a couple of solved example on that, and lately we defined the thermal contact resistance, and we discussed some significance about it and how does the temperature jump suddenly at one point. So, I thank you for listening. We will meet again for the next lecture. Thank you.